Part one of the rise of the novel. Last time we insisted on the novel. 3 elements were explained. What is the novel? Elements of the novel: the setting, the plot, the characters, the language, the narrator, point of view, and so on. Then we have major types of the novel, from the epistolary to the allegorical to the historical to the realistic and the sentimental and so on. Today is a little bit different. We should insist on the rise. Why was it called a rise? It's like when the sun rises. When we say the sun rises, means that a new era appears, new climate also comes to life, from dark to light, from you stand up, you say rise up, it's rising, but rising is to come from something not known to known. That was the case with the literary genre of the novel. Before, there were only traditions about theater, drama, and prose or poetry, but for the prose it was a little bit not found. And if we relate to the topic of the rise of the novel in terms of history, it's in terms of years, the chronological order should be as follows. I said last time that the beginning of the novel was by the end of the 17th century, start of the 18th century. In fact, when we say the rise of the novel, most of the views should go to the 18th century as a date. But I give honor to my I acknowledge my dear teacher of literature, Dr. Bouagada Habib, who used to tell us years and years ago when I was a student that movements are elastic. So when we say the movements of the rise of the novel realism in the 18th century, doesn't mean the year 1700. Means that there were some preparations for the movement before. It was elastic. So if we can consider what were the preparing aspects or novelists for the novel, we should start some years ago or before the 18th century. It means the year where the novelist John Bunyan, with his novel Pilgrim's Progress, launches for the first time a fictional novel different from what was written before. And the year was this book, Pilgrim's Progress. It's available at the level of the university library, and it's online. I'm sure you can have it. Bunyan published his book into 2 parts. The first book was published in the year 1678, first book, and then the second book was in the year 1684. So it's a little bit 2 decades before the 18th century. Bunyan prepares for the appearance, say, not the flourishing, the appearance of the novel. And with his Pilgrim's Progress story, in 2 lines, if I can say, or few words, Pilgrim's Progress is a story written into 2 periods of time and 2 books. It focuses or highlights 2 periods important for the life of any individual or human being. It's imprisonment, the jail, then the procedure or the progress for liberation, freedom. What is beautiful in Bunyan Pilgrim's Progress is that when you read him, you trust him, you appreciate him. Do you know why? Because he was real when describing the jail. He was real when describing the prison. Himself was a prisoner. So all the circumstances of the prison and what is beyond the bars, the jail, are realistic to a large extent, since himself has lived the experience and wanted to report it for his readers. So Bunyan is a journey of the pilgrims, journey to a sea called Sea of Death. By the end, they reach the Sea of Death. But the book insists on 2 themes, as I said: imprisonment, then the process of progress for liberation. That is, in short, John Bunyan novel Pilgrim's Progress. Years after, and what I'd like you to bear in mind is the year 1719. The year 1719 is the publication of the book of Daniel Defoe, a novelist for the first time appearing, with his book called Robinson Crusoe, as the French people said, Robinson Crusoe, as they pronounce it. So Robinson Crusoe, as everyone knows, is a book for children. And Robinson Crusoe, as few of people may know, is a book for adults and not for children literature. That's why this book is considered as an allegorical novel, as we saw in the types of major types of the novel. Robinson Crusoe is an allegorical novel. It looks like children literature, but in fact it's an allegory which holds beneath it other hidden meanings: capitalism, economical, political, historical. So it's about it seems to be the story of a shipwrecked seaman, a shipwrecked person, a person who used to make tradesmen in the slaves, bringing slaves from Africa. Suddenly, once in his trip, he got a stormy, really storm on his way, and of course the boat was upside down, thrown by the waves, to find himself thrown in by the seas, by the waves, in an island called Island of Despa. No life approximately in that. The native inhabitants of the island are called the cannibals. The cannibals are savage. So Robinson Crusoe was found alone in a land full of savage animals, earthquakes all the times, harsh climates. He has to build a shelter to protect himself. He has to learn how to make fire in order to eat, in order to provide modest circumstances for life to resist, till finding a refuge or being saved from that island to reach back his country. And all along that life on the island, he manages to provide a good living. And once a day there was a prisoner fleeing, called or he calls him Friday, who was a slave, and Friday becomes the slave and Robinson Crusoe the master. That's why I told you that it's not a children literature, it's rather a story full of adventures and full of meanings, not surface meaning, but hidden meaning, to mean capitalism, the triumph of the master, the triumph of England as a colony. The colonizer needs colonized people, slaves people. Capitalism, he succeeds to gather a good, huge amount of fortune, and was saved from the island, the harsh island, to be back to England, a rich man and a religious man, since all the time he was taking the Bible and reading it, thinking that the influence of God helps a lot to save the life of people, especially if confronted with problems. So that was all in all the Robinson Crusoe story about a successful experience of a man on the island. He said, up to critics, the novel 1917 can be the starting year for the rise of the novel. Not all critics agree upon it, but it is a starting point. It is a starting year, 1917, the publication of the novel, because the Crusoe for the first time provides us with a personal experience different from Protestants, from pilgrims, as used to do John Bunyan, different from the mode, the tradition, the mood, the tune, the tone of the writing at that time. It's really a story which has a length, which has characters and a good plot, a good language. It can be called a novel. Not all I said critics agree on that. They say it is a novel, it is an adventure, it is a life, it is a good experience, all but not really the word novel. Okay, so till now the really flourishing novel, as it should be, it must be, and convincing for critics, hasn't appeared yet till the year 1740. 1740 is the year of the publication of Pamela, Samuel Richardson, Pamela, Samuel Richardson is a novelist who isn't illiterate, but he isn't an educated man anyway, but he was gifted for the talent of reading and writing literature, and he was the first one to publish a book called Pamela. This book, the novel Pamela, could convince writers to as a novel, and it's for them the plot, the characters, all the elements can gather to make a good novel, technically speaking. And that's why they decide to call or to launch the starring year for the rise of a developed, flourishing, flowering novel as the year 1740, the publication year of Pamela by Samuel Richardson. And maybe you notice that whenever there is a date or a year, I should check my papers because I have very bad memory in dates, as all my students know that Defoe about me, and I don't care, and I don't change. So, Samuel Richardson Pamela is the story of a girl who is 15 years old only, but a woman. Why a woman? We can consider her as a woman because she is from the countryside, and up to Richardson, as described in the novel, a 15 years old countryside girl doesn't look exactly like 15 years old city girl. Rather, the countryside girls are fat enough, red cheeks enough, on the way to be a woman, very readier than a city girl, spoiled by civilization and so on, as he said. And the occasion of writing the novel Pamela is a phenomenon, a bad phenomenon, a bad sort of girls in England who used to wander lost in the streets of London with illegal babies. These girls coming from the countryside were compelled to work as servants for the rich people. They usually these girls from the countryside fall on men who are villains, and they used to rape them, and of course used to kick them out in the streets of London, not knowing how to feed themselves, what about to feed a baby, and impossible to go back to the countryside with that scandal. So this hurts Richardson a lot. He decided to write Pamela. So what did he do? He makes Pamela, a countryside girl, turn from a servant maiden girl working for Mr. B. Mr. B is a character, a rich man in the story. She turns from a servant to a lady entering the world of aristocracy, by a legal marriage with Mr. B. How did it happen? Many events are there. Of course, Mr. B, as other villain rich men, used to run, as we say, after Pamela, and used to knock at her door, and so on. But Pamela was a girl educated enough to resist his attempt and to stick to her values and to ethics, and she succeeds to make him fall in her love and marry her legally. He marries her legally, and she, though in first time the family, of course, the aristocratic family despises her, but by the end she succeeds to be the wife of Mr. B, the rich man, and loved, welcomed by his family. So the message of Samuel Richardson in this novel was, of course, to give a model, an advice for these girls. Look at Pamela when she resists, in spite of all the bad circumstances she lived. She could gain Mr. B as a legal husband and not rape her, throw her in the streets as the other girls. And that's why after the novel has become a little bit famous, the novel was published again with two titles, Pamela, under Pamela, Virtue Rewarded. Virtue rewarded, as if it's a message from Samuel Richardson. Then when you stick to your virtue, you will be rewarded, or at least if not married to a man like Pamela did with Mr. B, at least preserve yourself and preserve your life. That's all in all the values in this novel of Pamela. We conclude this video or this lesson by Henry Fielding. Henry Fielding is another competitor or a peer to Samuel Richardson. Is another writer called Henry Fielding. Henry Fielding published many novels, but the one for which he was echoed is Joseph Andrews. Joseph Andrews is a novel by Henry Fielding. I don't know if you can understand me. I need a board and chalk and so on to make the relationship of Pamela within Joseph Andrews, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible. Joseph Andrews is one of the characters within Pamela. Again, when Samuel Richardson wrote Pamela, Pamela is a girl character in the novel. Pamela has a brother called Joseph Andrews, who is in the novel of Pamela is a minor character. Okay. So Henry Fielding, when he decided to write his novel, he decided to take one of the characters of Samuel Richardson from Pamela. He decided to take this minor character, Joseph Andrews, the brother of Pamela, the supposed brother of Pamela. He took Joseph Andrews from the novel and call it and makes him the hero in his novel. Not only the hero, but the title of his novel. I repeat, Samuel Richardson wrote Pamela. Pamela is a girl in the novel who has a brother called Joseph Andrews. Fielding, his a competitor to Samuel Richardson, want to react to Richardson by another novel. He took the brother of Pamela, the same name, Joseph Andrews, and Henry Fielding makes Joseph Andrews the title of his novel and the hero in the novel. So it's a novel very humorous, full of humor, and really Henry Fielding was talented in writing it. Why? Do you know why? Because while Samuel Richardson defended Pamela virtue in the novel, comes Henry Fielding, the writer Henry Fielding, to publish a novel called Joseph Andrews. In order what? In order to defend the virtue of this man, what we call male chastity. This man, Joseph Andrews, is a chaste man in the novel. He is also persecuted, if you like, by Lady Booby or Mrs. Booby, Lady Booby. Lady Booby, as her name may infer, is a fat and old woman, and really, in our culture, we may say dishonest woman. She wants to have Joseph Andrews as a companion to her, younger than her, of course, age and beauty. She is fat and she is old, and she wants him as for him, but because she is rich. So Joseph Andrews as well resists to the attempt of Lady Booby. Didn't care about her money, because he has a lovely girl in his life called Fanny. One of the story is full of rumors, full of the village, you know, and the tradition of news in a village. It was rumored that Fanny, the beloved of Joseph Andrews, comes to be the daughter of Joseph Andrews' parents. Joseph Andrews' parents, Mr. Andrews and Mrs. Andrews, there was a rumor that Fanny is their daughter, and Lady Booby was very happy that Fanny should be the daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Andrews, so that Joseph Andrews will be the brother to Fanny and can't marry, since they are siblings. By the end of the novel, when the parents come, it appears that yes, they had a girl in the previous time, called a girl who was stolen from her cradle during that times, but the parents replaced Fanny by a boy in order to calm their emotion and so on. So it was Joseph Andrews who appears not to be the son of the Andrews family. Fanny, who is the beloved of Joseph, appeared to be the real daughter to the Andrews family, and Joseph is not their son, and in this case he can be married to Fanny. Fanny and Joseph Andrews aren't sister and brother. I know that things may be in a mess in a video, but really when we inshallah, if God Mashi'atullah we meet, we should explain these details in the board with the chalk, with your questions in a better way. So Joseph Andrews, all in all, is the second novel by Henry Fielding about defending male chastity. And by the end there are many nice denouements, nice conclusions. Lady Booby went back to flirtation in London, and Joseph Andrews succeeded to marry the love of his life, Fanny, who is no more, who is the daughter of the Andrews, but the wife of Joseph Andrews. Okay, all in all, John Bunyan started the writing of the novel, but it wasn't really convincing for critics. In the year end of the 17th, 1678, 1684. Then the year 1719 is the launching of a good novel full of adventures, of accounts, of history, of facts, of an experience, individual experience on an island of a shipwrecked person called Robinson Crusoe. But this also wasn't enough convincing for the critics to call it a flourishing novel, till the year 1740 is considered as the launching year for the rise of the novel Pamela in 1740, and 2 years after 1742 comes Henry Fielding with his novel Joseph Andrews. Next time, inshallah, we should end the rise of the novel. This is the way the novel launches, prepared for, and flourishes. Then we have two other writers and the rise of the novel before Romanticism and poetry. Romantic poetry comes as a break to stop the wheel of evolution for the novel for a moment, for a short period. Then the novel appeared with other giant writers that we should have a look about them in the next lesson. Thank you for today, dear students.